Could the 49ers sign a future potential Hall of Famer at the wide receiver position this offseason? Some potential bad news for Niner fans who want to see San Francisco go all in and spend big in free agency. More buzz about a Debo Samuel return to the Bay. Will the Niners check in on a Maxx Crosby trade this week? Because that's going to be one of the juiciest topics here in Indianapolis throughout the NFL Combine week. And a potential Niners free agent target on offense is off the market. It's all coming up right now. Let's go. We're off and running. Video number 2 of the day. This is the San Francisco 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr., and as always, no matter where you are or how you're tuned in, thank you so much for supporting today's show. According to reports, the 49ers are interested in Mike Evans. He is going to have a vast market looking ahead to free agency, which gets underway on March 9th, and there's a reason why. This is one of the more accomplished wide receivers in NFL history who has spent his entire career producing big-time numbers for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He is a big-bodied wideout who is honestly one of the more productive wide receivers in NFL history, and some people might think that it's crazy that Mike Evans could be a Hall of Famer. But when you think about the production that he's put forward and the consistency and the long-term availability that he's had in his NFL career, he's going to go down as one of the biggest producers at the wide receiver position in the history of the National Football League. Just insane production throughout his NFL career. Prior to the 2025 season when he was injured, Mike Evans, since he was a first-round pick by the Buccaneers out of Texas A&M, had 11 straight seasons of 1,000 yards. And when healthy, I think Mike Evans is still a dog. He's a veteran. He's very well respected, great in the locker room. He's a winner. He's a student of the game. He's not a quick twitch route runner, but he is a savvy route runner, and you can tell that he is very devoted to his craft. Mike Evans is a player who, in a young wide receiver room in 2026, with Ricky Pearsall going into year 3, Jacob Cowing going into year 3, but he's barely played, Jordan Watkins going into year 2, Mike Evans can help coach those guys up, give them somebody to look up to, set a model example for some of the young wide receivers on this Niners roster. And while Mike Evans is not a speed threat and has never been a blazing 4.3, 4.4 guy, he can go up and get it. He can win jump balls. He can make plays downfield with contested catches. And you think about how Brock Purdy has had such a great camaraderie in between the lines with Jauan Jennings, right? What is Jauan Jennings? Jauan Jennings is a savvy route runner, high football IQ. He is not a speed demon. But because Brock Purdy throws with such great timing, touch, accuracy, and anticipation, because he gives his receivers a shot, Jauan Jennings has developed into a really good player at the wide receiver position in the NFL. Well, Mike Evans is a very similar player to Jauan Jennings in the way that he is not a burner, and obviously Mike Evans is a far better player than Jauan Jennings, but they have similar strengths. And so let's say that Jauan Jennings gets offered more than $15 million by a team in free agency, and Mike Evans wants around $20 million per year because he's older, he's been injured a little bit, and he's on the other side of 30. Where would you rather want the Niners to invest in at the wide receiver position between Jauan Jennings and Mike Evans? Even if Mike Evans is a little bit older, you could certainly make the argument that Evans would be the better choice here. There are some downsides. He is on the other side of 30. He's had some injuries the last couple of years, clavicle, some hamstring problems. The Niners as a team have had a bunch of soft tissue injuries. And here's the thing with Mike Evans that is one of my primary concerns, which is why I've said, look, if Jauan Jennings costs too much money, if the Niners get outdueled in negotiations and Jauan Jennings gets outpriced for the Niners' liking, let him walk. Because what's been one of the marquee points that I've made about this Niners offense transitioning from 2025 to 2026, they need to get younger, faster, leaner, more dynamic, and more explosive as an offense. Mike Evans doesn't help you get younger, and he doesn't help you get faster. So those are some potential concerns there. I would be surprised, honestly, if Mike Evans signed with the Niners and if the Niners signed Mike Evans. But for one of the more well-accomplished players in NFL history at the wide receiver position, I do think he is a player that would make this Niners offense better, and then you would cross your fingers and hope and pray that he'd be able to stay healthy. Topic number 2, will the Niners be more aggressive in NFL free agency this offseason compared to last offseason? Looking back on it, this is kind of sad. The Niners' biggest addition in free agency last year, tight end Luke Farrell. What a joke. They gave him a lot of money, and Luke Farrell stinks. They brought him in to be a blocking tight end. This isn't ideal. Luke Farrell struggled with blocking this year. The effort on the interception on the ball that was targeted to him against Seattle in the divisional round was pathetic. So what the Niners did last year, they wanted to reset the roster, hybrid rebuild. They wanted to eat some dead money. They kind of needed to because they were getting older and very expensive. So they ate over $100 million in dead cap. They let a lot of marquee players go. They traded away Debo Samuel, Dre Greenlaw, Talanoa Hufanga, Charvarius Ward, Aaron Banks. They all left in free agency. And the Niners did all of that, ate all of that dead money, let some of those great players go, and still won 12 games in a wild card game. So now, will the Niners look at this offseason as one where they want to capitalize, where they see themselves in a Super Bowl window, where they need to get aggressive and make some necessary changes on the roster, especially on offense, bulking up the pass rush, to become that bona fide Super Bowl contender, to complete that quest for 6? Now, San Francisco this offseason, compared to last year, has a little bit more financial flexibility. The Niners are in a good spot as far as cap space. They're in the top 10 with $41+ million in cap space, and they can open up additional cap room if they please by cutting a player like Bryce Huff, which would open up $5 million. If they cut the likes of a Jake Brendel, that's a few more $1 million. I've talked about this here on the show. And John Lynch said after the year that the Niners will have more flexibility this offseason compared to last year's offseason cycle when they were coming off that 6-11 season. Naturally, when you get close and win those 12 games, it leads to a team being more aggressive and going all in. But this could be that potential bad news that I was talking about at the start of the show, because this is a report from Matt Barrows of The Athletic. I've been told it's going to be another quiet year. I don't think that it's going to be splashy at all. Now, does Mac Jones get moved? Do they get an extra draft pick because of that? That could make things a little more interesting. It would give them more resources to move up in the draft or make trades acquisition-wise. Now, I'll do my best to ask John Lynch about this tomorrow. I'll probably have 1 or 2 questions to ask him among all of the Niners media members who are going to be in front of him at his podium at the Indianapolis Convention Center at 5:30 p.m. local time. That's Eastern time on Tuesday, February 24th. But I hope that the Niners are a little bit more aggressive this offseason compared to last offseason, because coming off a year in which they won 12 games with all of the adversity that they faced, I think they're a couple of big splashy moves away from closing the gap on Seattle to being a true bona fide Super Bowl contender. If they just stand pat and all they do is really try to build through the draft once again, we will have to temper our expectations for the Niners. Now, that wouldn't surprise me if they look at this as a multi-year roster reset. But I hope that the Niners look at this team right now and they say, Nick Bosa, Mykel Williams, Fred Warner coming back. That'll help us tremendously on defense. We hired Raheem Morris, who we'll ask John Lynch about tomorrow. If they get better at center and left guard, and they draft and sign a wide receiver, I believe in the scheme. I believe in the play calling. I believe in the quarterback. I believe in this Niners offense. They make some changes there, which aren't like drastic by any measure, and the 49ers next season can be a really, really good team. There's also been a lot more buzz about a Debo Samuel return. And to me, this just makes no sense. Now, Deebo, at this point of his career, of course, is not the player who he once was. But because of that, and because he's older and has an injury history, and his play is declining, and his speed has gone down, is not going to cost that much money. The projection for Deebo is like $12 to $13 million per year. But going back to that point that I made earlier, and the point that I've been making all offseason long, the Niners desperately need to get faster and more dynamic and younger on offense. They were the oldest offense in the NFL last year. Debo Samuel doesn't help you check any of those boxes. And revisiting with Deebo, a Debo Samuel return, how does it move the needle for this offense? In fact, it could make things a little bit awkward for this team. And if the Niners and Kyle Shanahan force feed Deebo like they did at the end of the 2024 season, when he started to press and play poorly, it led to the offense being worse off. So I hope that the Niners do not look at Debo Samuel as a viable, realistic option to bring back, because to me, it literally makes no sense. We'll talk Maxx Crosby and Kyle Pitts here in a moment, but this edition of the 49ers Report is made possible thanks to our friends at PrizePicks. Shoot your shot on PrizePicks. Get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. PrizePicks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. PrizePicks makes every dunk, every dime, every board that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. PrizePicks, my people, is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Pick from all of your favorite sports. Any sport that you imagine possible, you can pick from that lineup. And with PrizePicks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose FlexPlay, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts, go for the power play. No matter your play, PrizePicks is a great way to put your takes to the test. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So a big topic of conversation in Indianapolis around the entire National Football League is the availability of star pass rusher Maxx Crosby, who since 2019 has been one of the best defensive players in the NFL. Will he get traded? Will he run it back with Las Vegas? They just gave him a contract extension last offseason, which at the time made him the highest paid non-quarterback in football. And Vic Tafur, who covers the Niners, tweeted this out, used to cover the Raiders, so he knows Crosby very well. The first order of business for the 49ers Brain Trust this week will be checking with the Las Vegas Raiders on the trade price for defensive end Maxx Crosby. This is notable because the Niners are huge fans of Maxx Crosby. They have shown some interest in him before. They are willing to invest in pass rushers and along the defensive line. They've done that under John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, to their credit, since they came to the Bay in 2017. But will they once again? I've talked about the pluses, the minuses, the upsides, the downsides of a Maxx Crosby trade. If the Niners can get him for a first-round pick and other additional assets, I'd think long and hard about it. If the Las Vegas Raiders are very firm on their asking price of 2 first-round picks, I'm moving off of that possibility as a trade candidate, and I'm not making that move because that really sacrifices your potential future as an organization. His cap hit is over $30 million for next year. He's going to be 29 years old, coming off a meniscus surgery, and I wonder how his game ages because he's not that twitchy unicorn athlete that a player like Myles Garrett is. So there will be a lot of chatter and a lot of talk around Maxx Crosby this week in Indy. Anything I hear, I'll pass along that info right here on this show. A potential unicorn athlete at the tight end spot for San Francisco, no longer available. I've talked about Kyle Pitts as an interesting player for the Niners to go after in free agency. According to reports, the Atlanta Falcons plan to use the franchise tag on Kyle Pitts, which means he is not going to hit the open market as a free agent. Now, Kyle Pitts, coming off a second-team All-Pro season in which he had nearly 1,000 yards, could be traded for, but the Falcons going to give him a contract for 2026 at the very least. They can trade him and take some calls to see what the asking price is and what teams are willing to give up for him. Or they could work out a contract extension or have him play on the final year of his contract, which would be that franchise tag deal in 2026. But Kyle Pitts will not be an unrestricted free agent this upcoming free agency cycle. All right, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I appreciate all of you, as always, for tuning into the show. This is the 49ers Report. We'll catch you tomorrow. John Lynch speaking with the media. Can't wait for that. A lot of topics to discuss.